And so let's start talking about finances. This is the thing people have to understand. Stay the hell away from credit card debt. The way debt works, there's good debt and there's cheap debt and there's bad debt. Like my mortgage is a fixed 30-year rate. And this is going to sound like Chinese for a bit, but I'm going to do my best to explain it. A lot of you will probably think that this is redundant, but this isn't about intelligence. These are skill sets. Like, this is something that if you know, you will be more prosperous in your life. So credit card debt is the worst thing you can do. If you're paying off your debt every month to like a Visa card or a MasterCard because of stuff you bought, that can be as high as 17%, and that's month after month after month. And if you can't pay all of it, the next month, if the debt goes up, the amount you have to pay only goes up. So basically, you're working for stuff. Like, you're paying your material possessions. You're giving them a salary, basically. It's the opposite of what you want to do, which is investments. And no investment is ever going to pay you 17%. If someone can guarantee you 17%, bail. That's a Ponzi scheme. You know, you might be able to consistently get 4 to 8%. You know, that's even a little high. 3 to 7%. Okay, credit card debt can be 17%. So you can't off balance that with other stuff. So that's what I'm trying to say is have credit cards to build your credit card score, but always get it back to zero every month. Okay, you have to be able to budget. Budgeting is very, very important. So let's say, and it doesn't matter how much you make. This is fractal, right? 1 year ago, let me show you something real quick. Let me show you something real quick about how it's fractal. This was just in Breitbart, I think 2 days ago. It says blacklisted 7 notable Twitter bans in 2018. So I'm like, did I make the top 7? I better have. I was the first one to be permanently banned. I think in 2000, of all the notables in this, like Alex Jones and Gavin and stuff. And I did. And it says, libertarian comedian Owen Benjamin, who had over 120,000 followers, was banned from Twitter in April. In this quote, both Twitter accounts suspended, and now my ability to make an income has been revoked, declared Benjamin in a statement following the ban. This is disgusting. I have a 2-year-old and a pregnant wife, and they just set my life back to zero with one big swoop. I just worked tirelessly for the 5 months building my online ability to make a living, and it's all gone. You will be next. Fight it now. Benjamin was often outspoken about his political beliefs, had an event canceled at the University of Connecticut in 2017 after he criticized the practice of giving hormone replacement treatment to children. Benjamin remains banned. Yeah, so that was financially devastating. And bear in mind, at the same time, they took away my ability to live stream on YouTube and upload videos on YouTube, and they suspended my Facebook account. So I couldn't even, thanks to the Bears, or else I couldn't have even gotten the word out that it happened, right? Because that's how they do it. And that's the definition of a conspiracy, by the way. How is Twitter, YouTube, Apple, Facebook all working together where someone gets banned all at the same day? It's called a conspiracy. That's what a conspiracy is. Alex Jones was called a conspiracy theorist, and then they proved him right by banning him off 5 platforms in one day. That's statistically impossible. And they do that so that you can't go on one of your other platforms and tell everybody where to find you. It ices you. And so I built, because like I had a college career touring colleges, and they all canceled after I came out about the saying that the trans kids is child abuse and you can't give kids hormones blockers. Just hundreds of thousands of dollars just gone. And I just bought a rental income house and it needed a roof. So I had to go in credit card debt at this point. I'm now doing manual labor for my brother for $20 an hour dragging brush because, you know, I was a touring comic. Like I would do weekends at clubs, like all this stuff. I'm still not allowed to do colleges or clubs or anything, right? I'm not even allowed to book my own theaters. They still have me banned. Guess what? I'm doing better now if you think about it. Like I don't have to cut in agents, managers, lawyers, all that shit. And I have consistent income now. But my point is, when I went back to zero, I just applied all the same principles to get out of zero. And I'll tell you. And it wasn't 0-0. That's why I like to give people a couple $100 if they're truly at zero, because zero is really hard to get out of. Having $1,000 is plenty to get out of any hole. But zero in debt is the worst. Zero is doable, but like, okay, so what you do is you budget out how much you can make a month and then look at all your expenses. We'll start with rent, right? Like, let's say you make $1,000 a month and look right down. You got rent. Let's say your rent's $200. We're just making this simple. I know this is insanely low. Your car payment is $300. Your food, $200. Going out is $500, etc. Right? You got to get it under 1,000 and then give yourself 10% to save. So if you make 1,000 a month, all your expenses, all of them, have to total no more than $900. So that means you might have to literally trade in your car for the cheapest car. No more going to bars. That's why I would sell flasks at my shows, because it's one of the only merch items that actually saves you money. If you want to go to a bar with your friends, bring your own liquor in a flask. And I know some of you bar owners right now are like, hey, fuck you, Big Bear. No, it's fine. It's fine. No one cares about that. That's not a big deal. The markup on alcohol at a bar is absolutely insane. You know, I think heroin is less. And then, you know, you don't need fancy shit. No name brands. Never buy new clothes again. And then once you start saving money, like, make sure you pay off your credit card debt. Student loan debt is low. It is cheap debt because a lot of it's only 3-4%. But credit card debt pay off immediately, right? And so depending on what you do, like if you work for a company and you're not your own corporation, just keep your shit to a minimum and then save 10% every month, because what you want, this is the dream, and this is what I've actually started to accomplish, is you have your money work for you. So let's say you have $100,000 and you can make 4% consistently on that. That's $4,000 a year, right? Every year. And you lose nothing off the principal. So the principal is the amount of money you have, $100,000. And if you make 4%, that's $4,000 a year. Now you can start understanding the mega rich. Because if that's $1 million, that's 40,000. That's 10 million, that's 400,000 a year off 4%. You can give, your money pays you, right? And that's 4%. That's nothing crazy. It's the same with owning businesses or real estate. But if you're like just trying to get out of debt, don't even think about any of that stuff. Like when I lived in LA, I shared one room with 2 other guys, at one point 3 other guys. I drove a 1991 Plymouth Acclaim with an orange fender that when I finally donated it to the Kidney Foundation, they said it was worth $1. Okay, I worked in a restaurant, so I would literally eat food off people's plates. Why would I do all this? Because I needed time. If I had stuff, if I'd had an expensive car or like, went out to eat all the time or any of that stuff, I wouldn't have the time to do stand-up. And I saw that happen over and over again to entertainers in Hollywood. They'd go out there, they'd want that bling, and then they'd find themselves working all these shifts, double shifts at the restaurant every day, and they wouldn't have time to go to the improv or shoot a sketch, right? So the way I structured the currencies is I kept my expenses so crazy low that I just had to work to pay that. And then the rest, the free time wasn't spent playing video games or, doing what people do or whatever. It was to allow myself to do comedy, because I didn't get paid as a comedian for years. And then even when I was on the show Punk'd, when I was like 24, I got $300 an episode, and it would be all day. Like, imagine if I couldn't do the audition, and then there's a callback, and then when you calculate all the time you put in to just getting that rate, you're making less than minimum wage, and that would happen all the time for people. You'd land a commercial where you make 10 grand, but you had to audition 50 times to get that. And if you think about driving and all that stuff. But anyway, so my whole thing was my currency was time to do comedy. You know, if I had to be at the restaurant every night to pay off debt or to buy stuff, I wouldn't have been able to be a comedian. So that's when you have to start thinking about currencies, right? Like a major currency is health. Like think about your job. If you have to sit 80 hours a week and you have like an Audi when you could easily have a 2003 Toyota, you'll lose years of your life from that. You know, self-respect is one. That's why that Google employee gave me $1,000, because that was, I totally understood where he was coming from. He had to feel better. He had to feel like he wasn't a total pussy. Where he's like, okay, because that's how war is fought. Like there's supply lines to the front of the line, right? Remember that movie? It just came out about the civilian fleet of ships in the English Channel that got all the lads back. It was directed by Christopher Nolan. Does anyone know what that is? This is some good content. I'm glad you like it, Tom. I think this is something that the people really need to understand because it will free you. Oh, Dunkirk, yeah. I have no idea why I'm talking about Dunkirk. What the hell was I talking about with Dunkirk? Oh, right. Okay, so you have these like old dudes that are patriots and they're not of fighting age, or let's say someone was too slow or they're missing an eye. Like my uncle got discharged from the Navy because he was missing some toes. Legend. Like my grandfather didn't have enough fingers, and so he would mine the lead that went into bullets. But the currency that they provided was picking up the guys that were stranded on the beach, and they're just as much as the war effort as anyone else. Like I actually get to say the things that need to be said in society, and I take the beatings for it. And there's people with jobs and they make tons of cash, but they can't say shit. So to resolve that issue with their morality, they help supply the front lines. And that makes total sense, right? But those are people with a disposable income, and we'll get to that in a second. Okay, so that is the most fundamental thing, is get yourself to a position where you're not spending more each month than you take in. And you may have to cut out some serious stuff. And if you got a girlfriend that isn't cool with that, where it's like, but baby, I want to go out to dinner, that's a deal breaker. Because that's someone who doesn't see the big picture. Where you say, listen, sweetheart, I can make you the best meal you've ever had here, and then we can go on a date on a hike, and then we can make love under a waterfall. Isn't that better than a club? And they'd be like, but baby, I want to look pretty in front of all the girls. Out. So don't be distracted by stuff like that, because none of those currencies are worth it. Those people in your life, like when I went back to zero with Amy was pregnant with Charlie. We have a little kid. We just moved across the country. And that's why Amy and me are so good, and she's such a legend, is she was proud of me. She was proud of me for standing up for kids. And she said that she wanted our children to be the man that I was being. You know, and Amy loves fancy shit. All women do. All women, they're like birds. They like shiny pebbles. They're kind of retarded in that sense. But guys are like that with like throwing rocks at shit. You know, like me and my buddy are slaughtering a pig tomorrow. I've never done that, by the way. I'm a little nervous, but I feel like it's the least I can do because I eat pork. I have to be a part of it. So that's the most important thing. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is taxes. Let's say you're your own corporation. And this is why you have to think about buying a house versus renting. Right now, it's really hard to buy a house. Really hard. And that's one reason why I was so angry at Jordan Peterson when he would charge $300 to shake his damp hand, because he knows full well who his audience is, just like I know who a lot of my audience is. They're young men who want a family, and they want to be able to buy that starter home, and they want to do good, right? And he would charge $300. That's such a dick move. And these people want to do good, and they want to be men, and they want to try hard, and they want to give respect to their alpha. And so they would do that. And that's manipulative. That's why I only charge $20, even though sometimes that it sells out quick, and it brings in some people that every now and then, act insane, but that's fine. So anyway, it's so hard to buy a house right now. Don't feel like a failure or that you're not part of the American dream because you can't afford a house. It's so expensive to buy a house, and that's for a variety of reasons. Foreign money, all kinds of shit, scams. So don't feel bad about that at all, because like my parents' house, when they bought it, was like 10 grand, 15 grand. Right now it's worth about 80, maybe. My condo in LA was like $650,000. And I bought it for the reason I'm about to tell you guys. But that was 1,000 square feet, like in a neighborhood where people shit on the street and butt fuck and get shot, and the cops have like little rainbows on their cars and don't give a shit about you. But when you're self-employed, let's say you own your own business, or like you have your own corporation where you pay yourself, and this is what Donald Trump has been accused of, not paying his taxes and shit, and his point is totally valid. He's like, no, I'm going to go with the laws that you idiots make. And so when you buy a home, if you have an income that's relatively high at the time, and they'll take all your fucking all your money if you don't figure out how to write shit off. A mortgage, you can write off the interest. And hopefully, while that's happening, the property itself is going up in value, but the whole game is to get your income as low as possible for the government to tax. Always pay your taxes. You'll go to jail if you don't pay your taxes. That's not something to mess around with. The game, the real art, is write-offs. And, don't pull a scam at all, but see every place that you can write off. Like, for example, if you own a property, the interest on the mortgage you take directly off your income. So let's say you gross $100,000 a year. And if you pay tax on that in the state of California, you'd have to pay $60,000 because you're in one of the highest income categories. You probably pay like 40, and then state is like 11, and then to pay Bernie Sanders' pudding pop fetish. Literally, they'll take more than you bring home, and then the sales tax, everything. It's insane. So what you do is you figure out how much you can lower your income. So you buy a place, and then the interest is a write-off. And if that doesn't help you, just rent. Like, there really is a thing where you don't necessarily know what's better between renting and buying. Like, buying was always the right move for the most of the history of America. But right now, if you're looking at like a fall-down house, it's like $300,000 in a suburb of a not that big of a city, which is what people are experiencing like crazy right now. Renting isn't a failure at all. You got to just make sure you don't overspend, because you don't want to get in a predatory loan situation either. You don't want to get an adjustable rate or subprime rate. I'll get to that in a second. But so then, like, gasoline to gigs is a write-off for me. This piano is a write-off. Like, the computer's a write-off. So let's say I spend $10,000 on computers and piano. So now I only made $90,000. Now let's say the interest on my mortgage was $10,000. Now I only made $80,000. Now let's say all the airfare. Now let's say I fly in Nimmer and Coddington and stuff for the tour, and Brandon, and maybe Delev comes in from Israel, which is a decent ticket. That all comes off my gross. So that's why it's to spend money is good if it's for your business. Because let's say it's $5,000 to have all those guys with me on the tour. Now I made $75,000. Now let's say I had to buy, I had to hire security. Now I had to hire lighting. I can get that shit down to 20, right? And that's not illegal. So now you have to pay like almost no taxes because, and by the way, I can't get there these days, which is a blessing. But there would be years where I would pay so like I would get my net low, and it's not a scam. That's real. If you have an expense that goes with your business, The federal government doesn't make you pay tax on that because it's wildly unfair. Like if you're a farmer and you have to buy seeds to make money, that's an expense that comes off your gross. And that's how you beat the taxes, because you can't avoid paying tax on any income. They'll sniff it out, the IRS or bloodhounds, and they will put you in fucking prison. But write-offs is a very, very interesting skill. And I highly recommend you hire a Jew to do it for you, because there's so much, the book is like that thick to know all this shit. The tax law is a whole thing. So now let's get to whether or not you should go to college. I tend to say no, because it's about return on investment. So back in like the 70s, if you got a degree, like a high school degree, you make 20, a college degree, you make 30, and then from there it grows, right? So you can start quantifying how much a degree is worth based on how much more you'd make, based on the 4 years that you took to go to college. If you crunch the numbers these days, the only reason to go to college would be for engineering, petroleum geology, agriculture, actually, if you want to. I don't know much about that, but that seems like you learn stuff. Trade school is very important. You want to learn how to weld, be a plumber, carpentry, stuff like that. It's all about return on investment, because if you go get a college degree right now from a mid-level like state school in like history, it's a terrible idea. And I'm not being judgy, because that's exactly what I did. I had a degree in history, and back then it wasn't as bad to do that. And I'm glad I went to college. I learned a lot. It was the first time away from home and all that stuff, but there's no return on that. All it does is put you in debt, and bigger and bigger and bigger debt. And it's the only debt that you can't declare bankruptcy on. Like you could buy an airplane with a Discover card and declare bankruptcy, which is not good. You don't want to do that, but it'll wipe your debt clean. You can't declare bankruptcy on student debt. And so any liberal arts degree is literally a chain around your neck, because now you have to take that stupid job just to pay for your health insurance. Now you have to, every month you have to pay it off. You get no value from it. You lost 4 of your most productive years, and you're more likely to vote for the left. It's a leftist scam. Because when you're in debt, when you're feeling like you're suffocating, you're going to vote in big government protection. People, that's why women usually go towards safety and men go towards freedom. Women go towards freedom when when their moms and their husbands make cash, and they want their husbands to work hard. And men will go towards safety when they're in debt and they have no hope for their future. Hey, Georgie, it's all good. So this is by design. There's a reason I'm taking the time to try and explain this to you guys, because they want you looking for safety. The scam, the ultimate wizard move, is the expansion of government. So they want you to be in a position where you can't afford healthcare unless you have a job. The job pays $30,000 a year. You're in $60,000 in debt, and there's no way out. Georgie, I'm going to call Amy to bring in George. Hang on a second. And this is why I, 1 second. Can you grab George? This is why I, like every special I sell, I give Coddington $1, because he directs and edits them, and he goes through the headache of doing all that. And so if I sell 5, it only costs me $5. If I sell 1,000, he makes $1,000. And so that is the type of relationship you want to develop with people that are starting off in very high risk, high reward, artistic type ventures. Because that way, let's say I paid Coddington $1,000 to direct a special, and I only sell 100. I now made way less than Coddington did. That's the beauty of a percentage of gross, because that's how I want the world to be. I want the world to benefit from each other's benefit. Like when your tribe benefits, I want everyone to benefit. When I benefit, I want my people to, in a fractal ratio type situation, benefit as much or as little as I do.